Well, frankly, I haven't heard of it. I can't imagine the Labor Party wanting an election at this stage of the game, and if there's any thought that it comes out of the government, then of course it's true that there's been a Gallup poll vastly favourable to the North West Cape communication station. The Labor Party is certainly split. The economy is certainly on the upgrade. But look, in a year's time, you know, the Gallup poll will still be favourable to the American station. The economy will be better than ever, and the Labor Party will still be split. Now, barring some accident which might destroy our quite slender majority in the House, I wouldn't see an election this side of this time next year and perhaps running on into the summer.
I've just returned from the Kempsey district, where it's been my privilege to see relief work that's going on for the flood victims there. On arrival in Kempsey, I was really amazed at the scenes of devastation, at the piles of debris, at the mark of the enormous volumes of water that were swept through the town. I went along to our Salvation Army Hall, which I found had been turned into a base for the storing of relief goods sent up from the Newcastle and Coalfields district and from Sydney. And there on Sunday, of course, all meetings were suspended while our people sorted and prepared and dispatched goods to the needy people. I've been tremendously impressed with the way in which so many people in the community have helped in response to our appeal. I would like to mention the St Vincent de Paul, the Smith family, the Central Methodist Mission, the City Mission of Newcastle, the radio stations and the press, and in particular this present station, who've given us splendid support in this appeal. In particular, the last appeal of this station resulted in lorries from a city firm working all of Saturday morning to collect supplies being sent by the people. And now we have adequate supplies, and our people are out all over the district, right down as far as Hat Head, supplying the needs of those people who are in such great need. Thank you very much indeed.
Father Sims, what organisations take part in the observance of National Marriage and Family Week?
Last month, the Lord Mayor called a meeting from representatives of most of the churches and the YMCA, the YWCA, the Father and Son movement, National Family Guidance and other public organisations in Newcastle to form a committee to observe this National Marriage and Family Week here.
And just how wide is the observance of the week?
Well, it has been going for some years on a national basis with headquarters in Melbourne and has been strong in Sydney for the last 3 years. But this year the Lord Mayor decided that it was a fitting time to start the observance here in Newcastle.
Is it held at any particular time?
Well, this year it has been decided to hold it to coincide with Mother's Day. So this year then the observance is from the 12th of May to the 18th, because the Lord Mayor considered that Mother's Day would be a very fine opportunity to start this week and would give us a starting point for our talks in the churches and so on.
And just what are the aims of National Marriage and Family Week?
Well, we hope that through this week observance that the community at large will obtain a deeper realisation of the importance of family life as the foundation of our Christian community. In particular,
today's Liberal Party convention at Gosford, there was discussion of rural affairs in Australia. One of the speakers was the President of the Senate, the Honourable Sir Alistair McMillan. Sir Alistair, what were the main points you made in your address?
I was really answering the previous speakers who had dealt with the question of export markets and the primary industries in general. I adopted the attitude toward the whole thing that Australia's possibility of export markets developing was quite a reality. The need was based, of course, on production of the right type of article and also at a price that is saleable in the markets that are so close to us in the Near East.
In practice, what's being done to develop new markets?
Well, trade missions are being sent into these various countries. Trade commissioners are established there. We are closely in touch with the needs and requirements of these countries, and then individual firms are sending their own people up there to investigate how best to get into these difficult markets.
What parts of our primary production are increasing in export potential and what, if any, are decreasing?
Well, we're getting a considerable amount of dairy produce into the Near East now, and that is likely to increase over the next year or so. As well as that, it looks as though there will be a considerable increase in export of meat products, conforming to the requirements of the particular religions of the countries that we'll be exporting to.
It's still a fact that Australia rides on the sheep's back, though.
Oh yes, that's true, but it's not completely dependent on it, because the other industries are holding their own very well, instancing, of course, the great export of meat to America of a type of manufacturing meat that is so necessary in America.
The dairy industry has faced problems in recent years. Is it, in fact, still facing problems?
Well, I suppose the dairy industry, ever since the dairy industry has been facing problems. If it isn't one of fire and flood and drought, it's a question of markets and production. But whilst we are going through a difficult period, I'm not concerned about it because I think that we will be able to handle the situation in the way of butter sales, which will increase, and also dried milk is now selling fairly readily on the overseas markets.
Do you find that in price and quality, Australian dairy products are able to compete on the open market with, say, New Zealand's products?
Well, we're not altogether competing in New Zealand, not directly, but we're aiming at keeping up to a standard that we know the people and the countries that we're selling to require. Always remembering that the standard of foodstuff is largely based on the requirement of the housewife whether she is in Australia or in the Near East.
The increase in our export sales to the Near East will surely depend upon the standard of living which exists in those countries.
Yes, well, certainly it will. But then, of course, we remember that the standard is lifting very considerably. In Japan, for instance, the standard of living there has changed over the last 10 years in a very remarkable fashion. And as the standard is raised, so are we able to sell them more of our products. And that is one of the interesting things that I think will happen in the other Southeast Asian countries.
So you foresee a continued increase in our trade with Southeast Asia?
Yes, I feel quite confident that that will happen. It largely depends on our preparedness to pay great attention to packaging, presentation of our goods, and then a good deal of advertising and propaganda work will be necessary to reap the full benefit.
Has it been found necessary in general to extend credit in the way that credit was extended to Red China for wheat?
No, that has not been found necessary. It is advisable, of course, that we do know the capacity of the various countries to pay for our products. And as you know, the government has taken action by way of export guarantee to cover many of those commodities that we're selling in these various countries.
Thank you, sir. Our guest this evening has been the President of the Senate, the Honourable Sir Alister McMullen.
Mr. Harrison, just what benefit do you think the driver training range will have from the Road Safety Council's point of view?
We believe that this school will provide a facility in the Newcastle district which will produce drivers who will be more informed as to their responsibilities as motorists.
Do you consider that a lot of present-day drivers aren't sufficiently informed?
I do believe that drivers of today who get their licences in the normal way know barely enough to save their own life.
And how long will the training course take for a driver at the driver training range?
Our course will proceed for 30 lectures for each student. 18 lectures will be in the classroom and 12 will be behind the wheel. And each behind the wheel lesson will last an hour.
You'll be placing a great deal of emphasis then on classroom instruction.
Yes, that is the basis for my earlier remark that many drivers today don't necessarily have enough knowledge, and we believe that this knowledge can only be gained by classroom instruction, and that is the importance that we place on it, that we're going to devote 18 hours to this in this direction.
The patient has a blanket plate back section on above the chest. Sand can be used if needed on the beach so that the head is in a down position to make a nice clear airway. The mouth or any foreign matter can be cleaned by means of the swab, and then by placing the air viver onto the patient, the fingers are held under the chin so that the head is really back, and then by pressing the bag, the air is forced into the patient's lungs through his nose and mouth. Between each time the bag is pressed, 2 seconds should be allowed to elapse so that the full cycle will take place. If the patient commences to breathe, then the operator can blend the unit with his efforts. Also, the oxygen can be administered if required or if on hand by a simple connection which is adjacent to the face mask. On the exhalation valve, the patient can breathe through and out to allow no extra mechanism to be operated.
Mr. Lindsay, when the 4 district ambulance services amalgamate, will there be any difference for people paying subscriptions to the ambulance services through their place of work?
No. Those that are already paying to the service, allow them to continue, and their deductions will be made through their works. Those that are not subscribing can obtain a certificate or a form and have it filled in and sent into Newcastle District Headquarters, and they will arrange the deductions.
And this will mean that the former ambulance stations will now be virtually base or substations?
More or less, yes. Newcastle will be the headquarters.